Good morning. Oh, well, we've got a lot of wind this morning, and I checked Murra. One of the wind farms are working out there, and it's putting out about 90% of its nameplate capacity, which is great to see. The other one's not working at all, which I'm not exactly sure why. So that's been 10 days or so at least before we've got wind that can actually drive Murra somewhere near its full capacity. But what I thought I'd talk about today is Matt Keane, and given the corruption in Victoria and the passing off to criminals and the CFMEU and Mick Gatto $15 billion, Matt Keane, who's chair of the Climate Change Authority appointed by Chris Bowen, he's looking nearly as dodgy as the Victorian government. Is the Australian government picking up a lot of their points, and are they just passing off money to the wrong people? I think that's a good question, and it should be asked. The opposition should be asking that every day. Matt Keane, who is a Liberal member in the New South Wales Parliament, is actually been travelling all around the world, but advertising his own private companies in the renewable space. Matt Keane may well be as corrupt and unethical as the rest of the clowns that are running in this renewable space. VicGrid, which is an arm of the Victorian government, is operating, if not unethically, if not illegally, at least unethically. And I think that's a real problem for VicGrid and AusNet. I think for them to get that transmission line completed, there is going to be some extremely ruthless land takeovers and compulsory acquisitions occur. We can do a whole lot better. Australia should do a whole lot better. We should expect a whole lot better from our politicians. There must be some integrity. There cannot be criminal activity. They cannot be passing off billions and billions and billions to global multinationals at the expense of the Australians. This is a poor process. It's poorly managed, and I think it's not in Australia's best interests. The data centres, the one in Victoria they're planning out at Sydenham, will take something like 2.4 gigawatts of power, which is around about 60% of their energy by 2030. So bear in mind that energy hasn't risen much in that time. All of a sudden now we've got data centres, government approved data centres, that are going to have massive amounts of energy required, and not intermittent power like renewables. They're going to require constant, reliable, dependable power. Very interesting. Thank you very much. It's Ross Johns here from the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. Enjoy your day.
And a very good morning. It's a Friday morning in the UK. It's late at night. One should be in bed. If you're getting up early, thank you for staying up. Jo Lovemore, talk to you in a second. I just love Fridays. I love Fridays because we have the weekend kicking off basically whenever you can sneak out of work. And if you work for yourself, it's being irresponsible to go home early. But what the hell? That's what I think anyway. Okay, some of the stories that are making news around the country. The Coalition will lodge a notice of motion in the Senate and House of Reps to stop Labor's new carbon credit approval, which will lock up land and destroy regional jobs. More than 8,700 farmers earning from $2 million to $10 million a year have been locked out of gaining full capital gains tax exemptions under the federal government's tax reforms. The federal government, wait for this one, has granted secret price risk contracts to 3 fertiliser plants or giants, sparking ACCC complaints from rivals left carrying massive losses on urea purchases. Australian farmers are still waiting on critical crop protection approvals as the APVMA completes just 43.9% of major agricultural chemical applications with its own agreed timeframes. We're done. eventually. Dreadful, isn't it? And the most important, normally I'll put the most important headline at the start, but I didn't this time. The Brisbane Lions in football, AFL football. Jo, don't ever get involved in it. If you follow my club, you'll be terribly disappointed for the rest of your living life. Brisbane Lions, by the way, 1-2-3, defeated the Cats in Geelong 1-0-1. And a very dear friend of mine, Rod McClure, was there. Rod's 422 years old, by the way, and he was there. And he had a very miserable night. One stage he was hopeful, but anyway. That's AFL, that's football, the real football, by the way. None of this, pretending you're hurt. Someone stands on your foot, you get that round ball. We don't. Ours is like bounces all over the place. If you want to find out more about what's happening throughout Australia, just keep locked on to where you are at the moment. You can go to Rumble, YouTube, X, and of course, Facebook. This is the Country Telegraph.
Now, there are fears for the future of Dartmoor's famous ponies, who have roamed the area for thousands of years. Campaigners are warning that new grazing rules could see almost all of the moor's semi-wild ponies die. Today, as it turned into a political row, Downing Street said the government would not allow the animals to be culled. From Dartmoor, here's our West of England reporter, Sangeeta Lal.
It is a landscape shaped by farming, a protected space for unique wildlife. And for the last 4,000 years, these ponies have helped Dartmoor evolve. Now, though, campaigners say some might be culled as part of a government plan to reduce livestock and prevent animals from overgrazing here.
Moving to the new contracts that they are proposing requires a 56 to 89% cut in livestock. And they have included ponies in that.
So you feel the inevitable consequence of that is that ponies will have to go?
Yes, there's no doubt about it, but the best managers are Dartmoor Hill Ponies because they have been shaped by this landscape. They eat it, they thrive on it, even in the winter.
But Natural England have said that. They have said that they understand and appreciate the importance that these ponies have to the landscape here.
Yeah, but how many?
Right.
For Joss, the issue is that Natural England has included these ponies in livestock counts under its new environmental schemes, which pay farmers for grazing land in a way that benefits nature.
The prior calculations, it was always the sheep and the cattle, so the ponies are kept separate, they were fine. But now, hill farmers that keep the Dartmoor Hill pony will have to be forced between choosing the pony or keeping the sheep and cattle out there to pay the bills.
Biodiversity across Dartmoor is declining. Without urgent change, Natural England says it could lead to increased risk of flooding and damage to wildlife.
Restoring this moorland is vital. Natural England says that managing how the land is grazed is one way to protect Dartmoor. They have, though, today said that they won't be recommending a cull of ponies, and the government has also said it wouldn't support one.
It's been their home since our Bronze Age ancestors settled here. An ancient breed that plays a vital role in maintaining habitats across this national park. Part of the charm of this changing landscape and hopefully part of Dartmoor's future too.
You know, I have a theory, and I'll talk to Jo Lovemore in a second about that. It's very interesting, isn't it? Speaking as we have of endangered and special animals, and horses are very special animals, these horses, we'll talk about their history. I don't know what they've been smoking or drinking. Whatever they have, please, can I have some? It's Friday. Our next guest is Jo Lovemore, a volunteer with the charity Friends of the Dartmoor Hill Pony. The ponies have roamed Dartmoor since at least the Bronze Age. I recall that age. Living on the moorland landscape for millennia. Dartmoor Hill ponies are genetically distinct from other ponies and have evolved to survive the moor's harsh conditions. Now, they are integral to the landscape, ecology and culture of Dartmoor, but incredibly, they too have been threatened by a cull, which would be the end of the line for this population. Makes you want to vomit, doesn't it? Jo's charity, founded by Charlotte Faulkner, campaigns for the protection of the last remaining semi-wild pony population in the UK. Jo Lovemore, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here. Good morning.
I mean, I am just, I have a theory. In Australia, we're trying to get rid of all the horses, the brumbies, which are iconic to Australia, like the Dartmoor pony is iconic to the UK. And we're trying to get rid of them. We've got all sorts of government propaganda and all sorts of environmental groups. Now, these environmental groups are joined at the hip to the UN, Agenda 30, I think Agenda 30, same as the WEF. And I see these organisations that are tasked with looking after the environment. In this country, we want to go back before the white folk got here, because you guys sent us over here. Thank you for that. We enjoy Australia very much, but it was a few hundred years ago. But they want to take us back to before we interfered with the ecosystems. And the same thing in the US. There's, besides other reasons why they kill the Mustangs, it's also because of environmental. Not as much there as here, because the UN has a great stranglehold on the UK, Australia and other countries. We sort of bow down before the great ones. Tell me, do you think, because I've been really researching this and I'm very, very interested in the only reason why they want to get rid of the horses is because they interfere with the environment. That's what I see. These horses, they are part of the UK. I mean, they are an integral part of your history. Why would they be trying to get rid of it, except trying to erase history?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, as you say, they do, these ponies, unlike in some ways the brumbies in Australia, which is, very different and a tragic situation in its own way, but Dartmoor Hill ponies have been here for thousands of years at least, possibly even longer than that. So they really are a part of the moorland ecosystem here. They've shaped it and it has shaped them in turn. They are really kind of woven into the tapestry of that ecosystem. So losing the ponies is detrimental to the whole ecosystem. So the argument that it's for the benefit of biodiversity and nature conservation is a little bit counter to what is actually being proposed. And Natural England, the government body that is proposing these changes in legislation, which will demand those reductions in livestock overall, but of the ponies in particular, have recognised the value of the ponies. They recognise that the role that they play in maintaining biodiversity, keeping on top of invasive species and so on, but their words don't match their actions. So the inevitable consequence of the reductions that they're calling for in all livestock, and ponies are now included within that, is a loss of the ponies. And they are, genetically a very vulnerable population now. There's only 1,000 remaining. They do have unique genetics. They are the last semi-wild ponies remaining in England. So they're pretty precious and they're pretty special. And once they're taken off and that those reductions have taken place, there's no going back from that, really.
Yeah, I think it's a despicable act of us humans. We have a responsibility, I believe, to these horses. They're not livestock, and here they call them feral. They're wild here. They're not livestock in the UK. I mean, it's like maybe bad calling King Charles livestock, because he's part of the UK. And probably more, would agree that King Charles is livestock. and the horses are way more important, in my opinion, in many cases. Tell me about their heritage, because the Dartmoor ponies, I mean, just from the introduction, it says that they go right back to the Bronze era.
Yeah, at least. I'm going to correct you on a little bit of terminology. So Dartmoor ponies and Dartmoor Hill ponies are two distinct things. So the ones that we work with are the Dartmoor Hill ponies, who are the native semi-wild ponies. The Dartmoor pony breed was created by the Victorians by the introduction. They crossed our Dartmoor Hill ponies with Arab and Hackney to create a more sort of sporty animal. And the Dartmoor pony breed don't sort of live in the same way on the moor year round that the Hill ponies do. They don't have that kind of resilience. So our Dartmoor Hill ponies have that kind of hardiness, that resilience built into their genes. They haven't had any sort of artificial breeding influence. But they're absolutely very much more than livestock. So they're considered as livestock units within this new legislation, but that they're not livestock. They're wild native animals in this country. They're all owned by commoners with traditional family grazing rights on the common, but there's very little sort of interference with their day-to-day existence. They're microchipped and they're monitored and they're checked and they're brought in once a year for health checks and so on. But they essentially live a wild life, a natural herd existence out on the moor year round.
There's obviously a clash with modern thinking as we move forward. That's what they say in the modern age, we're moving forward. It's a clash, and I think the clash is an appreciation with our history. If they get their way, and I think did you mention how many? I think you said about 1,000 Dartmoor Hill ponies left. So if they go here, we say the brumbies. Government says there's many thousands. Those that have worked and live in the industry, in the particular areas such as Kosciuszko National Park, say there's about 800. Government says they need to cull more, which would insinuate that, which would probably mean that they want to get rid of all the horses. Same thing in Victoria, in the Bogon High Plains. There are no horses there now, which no one really knew. Now, if they do this in the UK and they get rid of, and I find it abhorrent, but if they get rid of them all, surely that couldn't even be looked at, because wouldn't the local folk and wouldn't the people of the UK say, no, this can't happen?
I mean, there's a huge public support for our campaign and what we're trying to achieve here. The population around about 1,000 now is really kind of genetically the limit of what the population can tolerate. We can't reduce that gene pool any further. And yes, there is a huge amount of public affection. It's a huge tourist draw to Dartmoor as well, on top of all the conservation value that they have, the sort of cultural heritage importance, their role within the ecosystem of the moor. They're a massive draw for tourists, which is a significant industry down here in the southwest of England.
Yeah, I'm quite shocked. Can they be? Actually, let's get, before I ask you whether they can be managed or rehomed. Of course, they can be rehomed, I would think. But tell us about their terrain, where they, obviously it's of great importance. Tell us exactly what it looks like and how important it is to the UK.
Well, it's a moorland ecosystem, which is a sort of mix of sort of scrubby heather, pockets of forest, a lot of sort of bog, and sort of poor grazing, really, which is why the ponies do so well on there. They've evolved to survive on very little. What we do have now is an encroachment of something called millennia grass, which is a native species, but it's very dominant. So it will take over vast tracts of the moor, and it will crowd out other native species. It doesn't allow anything else to come through. It creates this very sort of thick undergrowth, sort of tinder dry undergrowth, and you have this huge sort of monoculture of millennia across vast tracts of the moor now, where it hasn't been grazed enough, and particularly by the ponies, because ponies have reduced, numbers have reduced over the last 25 years through subsequent agri-environment schemes, they've been reduced from about 6,000 to about 1,000 today. And we've seen the millennia growth taking over as the pony numbers have reduced. So where they're sort of a key role from an environmental services point of view comes in is to break up that millennia growth to allow other plant species to come in turn the invertebrates and the birds and so on. So actually they play a huge role within the landscape in creating environment that other species can thrive in, and reducing the wildfire risk as well, because millennia is this sort of dry, shrubby plant that when you have sort of hectares of it for as far as the eye can see, it's a massive wildfire risk, which is becoming more and more of an issue for us here in the UK. Obviously, it's something that Australia has always lived with, but it's quite new for us as the climate warms up. So ponies are really an invaluable tool in managing that risk as well. So to take any action which further risks reducing their numbers just seems crazy, to be honest.
It is. It just doesn't make sense, and because they've been there for, since probably eternity. I'm being loose with my terms there, but they've been there for such a long time. Surely they would be disregarded as part of the landscape. Let them enjoy their days and let them do what they're doing. But we have the wheels of government or environmental groups seems to be slow, but it's like a slow nuclear bomb. It will go off, and eventually you'll be affected. It's just that it's a bit slower than the real thing. There's a temporary cull at the moment. Will that continue, or do you have those in the hiding in the dark, baying for the blood of the ponies?
We are making progress with the campaign. Natural England, the government body who are behind this legislation, are kind of making some of the right noises. They've acknowledged that they have from the outset acknowledged the value of the ponies in maintaining the moorland ecosystem and enhancing biodiversity. But what's still hasn't changed is the policy. So the sentiment is yet to be translated into action. We have all of our sort of major political party leaders here have spoken out in support, saying they won't allow these reductions, they won't allow cull to take place. However, on the ground, that legislation still hasn't changed. In their latest statement that Natural England put out, they did say, they acknowledged that millennia, that invasive grass is problematic, that ponies are part of the solution, but yet we still don't have the protection of the ponies. We still don't have that in place. So as these rolling contracts run out over the course of this year, and we have the annual drift where the ponies are brought in October, that's when the reductions will start to happen if these new contracts are allowed to be implemented as in the shape that they currently take.
How can because this is it's not just a UK concern. Same with the brumbies in Australia, the mustangs, for example, in the US. It's not just a local issue. It concerns the entire global community. How can we become involved? How can the good folk of, say, Australia, how can they do something to voice their opinion?
Well, our petition's still up and running. We have 216,000 odd signatories on that, I think, and it is international. People from across the world have signed it. That can be found at change.org/Dartmoor Warrior, or go to our website, the Friends of the Dartmoor Hill Pony, which is wild2wonderful.org. Speak about us on Facebook, social media, wherever you kind of communicate your concerns. There's lots of kind of press coverage we've had now, so having that sort of amplified across the world is really valuable. It just to raise the profile of these wonderful ponies, and they are wonderful. They really are.
I just wonder whether these these organisations joined at the hip to the UN, whether they just hate horses. And I mean, I know one guy who's in charge of an organisation. He's moved on a little bit, but still very connected and more power. He hates horses. It's simple as that. And the consultation with the locals who deal with our horses in these particular areas. And they're not destroying the environment, contrary to what they're saying. You know, they do some clever photography. They'll zoom in on a couple of bits and pieces where a lot of horses have been, but they get down to that and they show, look at this terrible, terrible stuff they're doing to our environment. Then they say, I mean, one stage, the last campaign, which is just still going, they said there was such an increase in the numbers that the horses were having like foals every couple of months. You know, there must have been something like Caligula. It was just a wild time. And so all the figures they come out with is just pure propaganda. But it does work. It's quite worrying, because if it works and the general populace sort of look at the newspaper or just see the headlines of the news, instead of going in deep, the news is not going to cover it anymore. They're just going to do their... I mean, we were told that the legacy media won't cover it because of it's too upsetting for the population. I'm thinking, no, you have to tell it as it is. It's as simple as that. If somebody wants to find out more about your organisation, Jo, how do they do that?
You can find us online. We're on all the social media. And our website is wild2wonderful.org, and there you can find out about homing ponies. So there are a lot of the young ponies that come off the moor each year that we do successfully home, go on to be wonderful riding ponies, driving ponies, companions, and so on. But the challenge we would face if these reductions do happen is that a lot of those ponies, the sort of core population, have lived wild lives for 5, 10, 15 years. It's not possible to home them. They're wild animals. So it's a very different scenario for them. And that's why, unfortunately, the cull is the inevitable outcome if that comes to pass. But we're fighting very hard to try and make sure that it doesn't.
Well, you should. You need to stop it. And I think the key word, and we use it here, is respect. There is not that little respect at the moment, and this pig-headedness or evil intentions of particular organisations. We cannot stand. We can't have it. Simple as that. We need to be collective as a voice and really enunciate that we do not want. We will not stand for the destruction of our history and the obliteration of our. We call them our fellow Aussies, the brumbies. The same thing with your ponies. They are fellow Poms, and thank God they can't play cricket. Otherwise, I mean, in fact, you probably could do with a few playing for the English side at the moment. They're not doing. You're beaten by New Zealand. I mean, give me a break. And in England, jeepers, you guys are doing well. Look, Jo, thank you so much for your time. Jo Lovemore there. This is the Country Telegraph.
I didn't choose this life. I was born to live it. So was Dad, Pa, his dad, and his dad before that.
Come on, ladies.
You're supposed to be slowing down, you know. It's payback for all the free labour you got out of me as a kid.
I learned from watching my mum and dad and how they work together. So does my sister Sally.
Any trains? I don't. Feet up.
I'll always remember these days. It's the happiest days of my life. Together as a family.
Oh, you're so lucky I love you.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that about right, is it?
I don't know how you're going to deal with all this. Deal with what? $6 million debt?
Most farmers are in this amount of debt. As farmers, we gamble with the weather every day, and it's a risk we take.
You have no idea what I'm going through.
Maybe you should talk to someone.
Oh my God, no, I'm fine. No, you're not, Alison.
You and your dad's coward. Play a game of footy, all right?
Where's heaven?
What?
Where's heaven?
The sky, I think.
Can we go there?
Already reeling from a foreign war, now farmers are battling the federal government.
Farmers need answers, and they need answers now.
This time not about fuel or fertiliser, but major environmental protection reforms passed last year. The second tranche takes effect in 8 days, setting up a National Environmental Protection Agency. Critics say it's
effectively a police force for our nation's farmers.
Farmers fear routine activities will require approval from bureaucrats in Canberra.
Producers do not know what they can and can't do, and that's on a daily basis with simple things like putting fire breaks in, putting fences in, changing watering points.
A new report by AgForce claims the cost of ensuring compliance will be $3.5 billion a year for the agricultural sector in Queensland alone.
They are being bogged with more paperwork, more complexity, less time in the paddocks and less time being able to grow the food and fibre that we so desperately need in this country.
Potentially impacting productivity, food security and prices at the supermarket checkout.
I'm just a bit concerned that the government has watched Clarkson's farm and decided it's an instruction manual to impose European regulations here in Australia.
In a statement, Environment Minister Murray Watts said this change doesn't represent a blanket ban on all clearing and brings the ag sector in line with what every other industry has to do, encouraging landowners who need help understanding the changes to call a hotline.
Give a hoot, don't pollute our great oceans. We must remove these garbage wind turbines that threaten our wildlife and fisheries.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. It's a Friday, thank goodness. What's the song? Thank God it's Friday, that's right. I think it was in the 70s, wasn't it, where they all wore flares. I still have mine. I hear you chuckling in the background. Don't laugh at that. My flares were unique. They were just gigantic. Could fit the pet dog in it. Dunbar Wilkinson is a fifth-generation Snowy Mountains grazier and cattle breeder. Land management and enhancing biodiversity in the Australian high country has been a focus of Dunbar and his family. Dunbar is a former horsebreaker, stockman, drover, bull catcher, and for 20 years was captain and senior deputy for his local bushfire brigade. Dunbar, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Look, before we get into it, just sum up your thoughts on what's happening at the moment to these magnificent creatures.
Look, I just think it's just such waste. I just see so much unnecessary cruelty involved with what's happening, Mike, and I just think it's just it's so unnecessary, and there's such wasted opportunities. I just can see there's so much potential, so much better potential for these horses than to be shot to bits and left to bloat out on the plains to feed, like basically to create a wild pig feedlot in our national parks. That and I think that's sort of coming home to roost now with since the last cull was done, over 23 and 24. I mean, we're not too bad here where I am, but I just keep hearing of pig numbers that are unprecedented. A lot of landholders are having real problems, and that's certainly, I would think, is a big part of why that spike has happened.
Yeah, and you saw the Dartmoor Hill Ponies too in the UK. They've been there forever, and they also, again, the group that is trying to save the environment, which is in fact going to destroy it, connected at the hip to the UN, is doing all it can to eradicate thousands of years of history. The government, what they've done is, you can quite clearly, they've gone to other organisations for their thoughts and how to control and how to look after the Kosciuszko National Park. As Chris Minns said, your great fearless leader, said that we want.
I think he's your leader. I don't think he's my leader.
He's not my leader, but I'm just being facetious. But he said that he wants families to enjoy it, because he knows, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. Families to enjoy it. He wants people to go for walks and runs, to enjoy hunting. And I thought, Chris Minns doesn't know, and excuse the French here, he doesn't know, I'll be nice, doesn't know Jack, you know what. Can you just tell me, hunting, that's an incredible thing. Tell me, how long has that been going for, or is Chris Minns just so informed that the wrong groups that he's listening to are creating this spin and this misinformation that he's just going, feed me, feed me, feed me, and just coming out with his dribble?
Look, that caught me pretty left field, same as it caught you. I've heard the odd whisper here and there about shooters associations trying to lobby to get shooting in parks and to deal with the, I've heard it bandied around that could help, manage the wild pig and deer problems. And, I sort of sit somewhere in the middle on that. I think as a country, we need to get so much better at utilising what we have in this country instead of just shooting it and leaving it to lay on the ground. I think the waste in our society is, I think it's a huge problem. I think and I think I don't particularly like the idea of recreational shooters coming up there because of, maybe 40 years ago we could have got away with that sort of thing, but I think there's been a sort of a whole generations of people that haven't grown up with guns as being a tool, being sort of thought of as a tool and being a regular thing in our lives. And I just think you'd get a lot of people that wouldn't be very pretty what would happen up there now with a lot of recreational shooters that are just, not all of them by any means, but just there's an element I think you would get of real cowboys with, no idea what they're doing except really to throw a lot of lead around, and I think it could get pretty messy having that amongst the public. But I do think I'd love to see some the opportunity looked into further of instead of these aerial culls that we're seeing of horses, deer and pigs, goats. I've heard it's a regular one that they hit the pro-brumby people with the anti-brumby people. They say, well, you've got no problem with pigs and deer being shot from choppers. What's so special about horses? Well, I know a good mate of mine that you've had on this show, Shannon Burns. I know he's of a similar mind to me, and I'm sure there's plenty of others out there that we don't want to see aerial culling in these mountains at all. It's not humane. It's not the right way to shoot anything. Leaving something, carrying bullets to die, to slink away in the scrub where choppers can't see it, they can't land, even if they wanted to, which, we don't know who's up there doing this shooting. I just think, if we can close the park to do that sort of thing, we could close the park could be closed and let professional human consumption meat harvesters in there for whatever it might be, for 2 months of the year. They go in and spotlight. That's a highly regulated industry. They're all headshot. If they're not headshot, there's no commercial gain for those shooters. That body has to be left on the ground. So, it's a highly regulated industry for shooting kangaroos, deer. The pig market, I'd love to see that further developed, because that was a big market through the 80s and 90s, and I think that made a huge impact on their numbers. There was good money in that for locals to hunt that for. I think a lot of that was going to Germany, but that hasn't been the case for years. I think, if our governments could help open up those markets, I think that would, I feel like that's the future. We need to work with what we've got in this country, not just blow it out and leave it on the ground. It's sort of like a kid throwing a broken toy away.
And they're not broken toys. And this is it's like saying, we're going to increase our food production, and we're going to pop over to your house and grab your pet cat Tabitha or your pet dog, Molly or something like that, because we've now decided that they're good for food, and we're going to classify them as livestock. Horses aren't livestock. Horses, I mean, these brumbies have got such history with us, and there's so many new. I mean, I partially agree, by the way, with the with the feral pigs and stuff, or the wild pigs, because we all eat pork and ham, and but when it gets down to the horse, we have such technology where they can, the fertility programs and stuff. It's just a quick jab, and that's it. And even though it may cost a little more, the money they're spending. I mean, for example, the Invasive Species Council, I think they got $540 or something $million organised from government to get rid of these fire ants. And there's an easier way and cheaper way. But anyway, again, dealing with government, and so they just, it's more than just the ants. It's an intrusion on someone's human rights. But
here I've been very heavy-handed with how that's rolled out. I've heard, I haven't gone right into it probably like yourself has, but I've heard it's been very, very controversial. The way they've been very heavy-handed, and there's been animals and humans affected by those chemicals, haven't they?
Yeah, it's a guy called Trevor Holt has this machine. I call it the TARDIS. It looks pretty wild, and he paid for it, brought it over from the US, where they have fire ants there, but they treat them differently, and they use this machine. And he said, "Here it is. This is how it works." Anyway, it works on hot water, and they won't have a bar of it. Call him a cooker and a wacko, and everybody else believes that is. And the chemicals are putting on it's killed one of his calves, and it destroys the natural environment because it's a pretty intrusive chemical. Just like now, the Australian government allows paraquat and glyphosates in Roundup to be still used, and they're extremely dangerous. And I saw a video of some wine. The guy did a test to see what was in it, and he found paraquat, and paraquat's a terrible carcinogen. So all these things. So government is just it doesn't make any sense. But what the government is doing is taking advice from organisations who want to take us back before us white folk got here, and even before that. So they're probably wishing they can get a dinosaur or two to start roaming the earth.
Yeah, well, I doubt there was too much fire ant poison, or what did you say that was called? Paraquat.
Paraquat.
I doubt there was too much of that around in the pre colonial times in Australia. The other thing is the amount of I've heard. I probably this I haven't confirmed this, but I have heard that they doubled down on the 1080 quantities of 1080 that were put out in the park to cater for all these animals being left strewn all over the place. And they'd heard a lot of local landholders were very upset about the idea of what was going to happen, because they could see you can't have that amount of food in the landscape without it directly affecting the numbers, the populations of those animals that feed on carrion. And I heard they doubled down on 1080 up there. I've heard, I haven't confirmed this, I heard they actually put out over 9 tonnes up there. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen an animal die of 1080. I know a lot of farmers are, I'm a bit out on my own here. I know a lot of farmers use it. I won't have it on the place. So if you've ever seen an animal die of 1080, particularly when it's so non-target specific. I've had to kill working dogs while I was out working on my own property. Those dogs hadn't left our place. They were out working with me, but a fox or a crow must have picked up a bait from the neighbours. Particularly crows are bad for this because they have a crop in their digestive system. When when that food goes into their crop, their system will recognise that poison before it kills that animal, and so they'll just spew it or regurgitate it back out. But that could be miles away from where they ingested the bait, and that's what's happened to me here on my home place. You know, I've had to euthanise a dog that was in the middle of doing a job for me, with my stirrup. I didn't have a gun with me. If you can imagine having to do that sort of thing.
Oh, that's terrible. Terrible.
It's terrible. And it is it is the most lingering. It goes on for hours a lot of the time with 1080. You know, it's a horrible death.
It just shows you that, doesn't it, though, the management. Just back to the Kosciuszko National Park and the high country, the management, the government is not listening to those that know, those that understand. And it's I often say that it's all very well with the rural sector, people, politicians going to an outback station or going to a small town, they're there for 2 or 3 hours and that's it, and then they go back, and that's their whole outback or rural incursion. And it just doesn't work. And the same thing with government departments advised by activists, basically, on how to manage your part of the woods. They just don't know. I mean, you don't just have your own knowledge, you have historical knowledge and appreciation. How frustrating is that for you? And how do we, and I see that Angus Taylor says, give it back to the locals to manage. I think that's a 100% entirely correct. The locals should manage it because you guys know exactly what to do.
Yeah, I think you know, I can see both. I totally agree with you. I think I can see for people, there'd be a lot of people that would raise questions as far as suddenly farmers being expert at conservation of endangered species and things like that. But I think we need balance. I do think we need a lot more I think, you know, even if there was a panel of locals that were, you know, maybe appointed by the local area. I'm not sure I'm sure there could be a lot of ways of going about this, but I totally agree. We've just been pretty much since the stock were kicked out, we were kicked out, and really, by and large, really looked down on and ridiculed. Our culture was ridiculed. Like, I feel like our culture, they've sort of made a point on the whole. I'm not saying there's some very good park rangers and people being in parks over the years, but by and large, as an organisation, I feel like they've completely dismissed local knowledge, that there's nothing there to be reused by parks of any value. There's just no consultation about anything, and I do feel that there's been a bit of a covert system of trying to pretty much erase local connection to the mountains. You know, there just seems to be the fines for being caught up there riding a horse in areas that horses aren't meant to be, they're so out of proportion, Mike, for the amount of, there just seems to be so much acceptance of damage from any of the other tourist industries in the mountains. If you're a skier, if you're a skier or mountain biker, or, you know, there's all these infrastructure put in place to support your interest. You know, there's traffic's gridlocked. It's pretty much gridlocked from Canberra all the way to the mountains. I mean, the amount of wildlife run over just by cars alone going to those ski resorts. It just, whereas if I was to be caught up there riding a horse somewhere they deem, you know, to be wrong, you know, I'd probably get a large percentage of the fines that someone like Snowy Hydro are getting for pumping sludge into creeks. You know, like a lot of the time they were getting warnings for breaches, environmental breaches up there. And when they did get a fine, it was a $15,000 fine. That was the 12th, I think that was about the 12th breach. This is going back a while before the more recent sewerage leak. You know, it just seems to be very out of proportion, those penalties for locals' interests, because locals don't use the ski resorts by and large. It'd be a very small percentage because financially it's not that you know, you generally need a city wage to go and have a big splurge up there. But I got off track there a bit. But I feel like a local panel that were maybe appointed by local people to help, you know, to tie in, to have a say in how these things go forward with parks. Yeah.
Let's do that next week. Have that local panel. We'll do it on air, and we'll extend our time, so we'll do it from 9 sometime next week, early in the week, because I think we need to have a conversation about that and find out what really needs to be done. Can you tell us about the brumbies, how they could be actually utilised in managing vegetation, fire prevention methods, and so on?
Sorry, I'm just having a bit of trouble. It's telling me I've got to sign in. Can you see me all right there, Mike?
And you're looking pretty good with the hat.
You're not too bad yourself. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, could you just...
Yeah, I mean, tell us how the brumbies could be utilised, such as managing vegetation and fire management and so forth.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of potential there that's just been totally overlooked. I think, you know, this whatever 8 point something and still counting $1 million cull that they're doing. I mean, what a shame some of that money hasn't been used on research projects, you know, looking into these things on what sort of difference. I just feel it's been so understated by, you know, you never hear Invasive Species Council talk about, you never hear so many of these people that are talking about these threatened species and the dire threat they face and the dire threat they're facing from horses. I mean, you never hear them talk about how many of those animals were wiped out during these huge fires that we had during 2003 and 2020. These mountains, they've just just totally devastated by those fires, to the point where I fear, and I'm not alone, I fear the fire ecology, Mike, has actually changed now since those big fires, to the point where I think we're going to see these sort of big fires every 10 years or so now. It's changed the fire ecology up there, what's happened with regrowth, etc. And, you know, I would really like to see these horses, utilised. I know they can benefit, and I know if they did studies into it, the right sort of, you know, open-minded studies, I'm sure they would start to see correlations there on, you know, on quite possibly, sure, brumbies cause some impact, particularly if their numbers are a bit out of balance, but I'd like to see some of that, you know, and I'd like to see that better managed, so those impacts are greatly reduced from horses. I think we can do much better job of managing them, but also those impacts, even those worse impacts, you know, if you weigh that up against the big picture of fire, some of those things that they see as being impacts, you know, they might be the very things to save some of these species that are on the, you know, that are endangered from these massive fires, you know, and you know, I'd like to, you know, if we could have some local input up there with managing these horses, you know, there'd be so much potential to manage these horses a bit like, not like on a farm, but you know, sort of somewhere half between, where there's some active, proactive management instead of just reactive knee-jerk management every 10 years or whatever it is, this where you've just suddenly got to go out and shoot everything. You know, I think if I could had the access to go and pack horse or take a quad bike and take salt up into these hills, the ridge lines, where we've got so much thick regrowth coming up from these fires, you could get these horses utilising country that they're not utilising virtually at all at the moment, because since the parks stopped locals catching horses, it's totally changed their grazing behaviour and their behaviour in general. They've lost their fear of humans by and large. They're regaining that awfully quickly from their fear of helicopters and ground shooters, I'm sure. But you know, they 25 years ago, you never 35 years ago, you never saw horses in the numbers that they've been in more recently, but you also never saw them hanging around anywhere. You didn't get horses hanging around the main road, getting run over at times. You didn't see horses hanging around campgrounds coming in to lick the salt off barbecue plates, and you didn't see photographers walking up patting brumbies. I mean, if you saw a brumby, they'd see you and they were gone over the hill. So their behaviour and their behaviour's changed. They've lost that fear, and I think through a lot of these parks trapping programs of putting molasses and salt out and whatnot, they had these increased numbers, but they also mobbed those numbers up a lot, concentrated those mobs a bit unnaturally to where they were really, you know, having some impacts around areas like Tantanga and Kurungo. But it's not a big job to do the opposite of that. You know, you start packing salt up into these ridge lines. It's the ridge lines that we tend to get are more prone to getting hit by lightning strikes. That's something to do with the higher mineral content, I think, with the rocks and the higher point, closer point. But with these brumby pads you could get brumbies working that country. So they're utilising a lot of that feed in those gullies, those longer grasses, because no native wildlife is equipped to browse those longer, unpalatable grasses. They're just not. You will not see a kangaroo go and start grazing off a tall, half-dead, unpalatable bunch of grass. They're not equipped to do it. We can get those horses utilising that. That's a lot of horsepower. You know, they do a very good job of grazing country down like that. They don't have really hot manure that changes country a lot like cattle and sheep do. And you get them walking these pads in there. Well, you've got a perfect spot in the right conditions to light a backburn off to isolate a fire, you know, or to do preemptive mosaic burns during the right time of year when there could be, you know, prescribed burns put into that country, instead of having to get heavy machine, you know, for the likes. If you've got a lightning strike up on a ridge line, you've got no access there. It's impenetrable scrub to get into it. You can be waiting a day or days before you can get. By the time you get heavy earth moving gear all moving, unloaded to the closest point, it might have to walk in a long way to get in there. Then it's got to cut a hell of a big track through all this scrub, make a hell of a mess. Whereas if you've got a brumby pad up in that country, you know, you've got with the right conditions. You've got a very good chance of being able to use that to help isolate that fire. While, you know, it's not going to work on a 45-degree day while it's blowing 80 k's an hour. But a lot of times when you've got a lightning strike, you have got mild conditions. You've got that window to isolate that tree that's on fire or whatever.
But
it's
again,
into a massive blaze.
And you see again the brumby part of our way of life. I mean, they've fought with us, died with us. They can do so much good. I don't mean to catch you short by any stretch, but we have gone way over time. And I would like to continue this sometime next week. In fact, when we do our panel, we have to insist that you join us, because I think your knowledge and appreciation of not only the magnificent creature the brumby is, but of the relevance that particular Australian plays in Australia and for future generations. Dunbar, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
I don't know, really. I haven't really thought about that.
Are you online? Don't you have a Facebook page? Everybody.
I do have a Facebook page, but I don't really. I'm not really, I don't really use it. I do use it to see what's going on in the brumby world a bit, I guess. So I guess, yeah, they can contact me there. I'm just not really into doing posts of what I did yesterday and had for dinner last night and that sort of thing.
No, same here. If they saw what I had to eat last night, I'd get all this hate mail. Thank you so much for your time. Dunbar Wilson, fifth generation Snowy Mountains grazier. We are going to do more of this next week. And Dunbar, we look forward to seeing you on our panel too, talking about this issue and coming up with solutions and showing exactly why the propaganda that is spread by the Invasive Species Council and governments is entirely incorrect. This is the Country Telegraph.
The banks in our regional communities do all the heavy lifting, while the city-based or digital banks reap big profits. There's something really wrong with this picture. Across regional Australia, local bank branches are disappearing. This puts our communities at a big disadvantage. Regional Australians, young, old, those with a disability, First Nations and small business owners are being left behind. Meanwhile, big city-based and digital banks earn billions, much of it from you. 10 million regional Australians help fund the banking system. But regional banks are left carrying the cost of keeping branches open, providing essential advice on scams and fraud, identifying customers, helping with loan and business advice, and providing secure cash services. In a digital world, branches are an insurance for communities when systems break down. Essential banking services should be delivered by trained staff with local knowledge, not call centres, apps, or city-based and foreign-owned banks. A community service obligation on banks would allow our regional communities to access the essential banking services they deserve.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. From horses to camels shortly. How would you like your camel, one hump or two? I like using that. I've used it a billion times, by the way, so feel free, anyone, to tell me to shut up. It's a Friday too, by the way. I love Fridays, footy, whether it's that one which you all get together and called rugby, or the other one where you run away from each other called Australian rules football, or the round ball sport. I have to say, sport is such a great way of releasing the stress of that previous week, isn't it? It's just fantastic. Some of the news that's making news around the country, the Coalition will lodge a notice of motion in the Senate and House of Reps to stop Labor's new carbon credit approval, which will lock up and destroy regional jobs. More than 8,700 farmers earning from $2 million to $10 million a year have been locked out of gaining full capital gains tax exemptions under the federal government's tax reforms. The federal government has granted secret price risk contracts to 3 fertiliser giants, sparking ACCC complaints from rivals, left carrying massive losses on urea purchases. Australian farmers are still waiting on critical crop protection approvals as the APVMA completes just 43.9% of major agricultural chemical applications within its own agreed timeframes. And for those that follow AFL football, if you don't, hang your head in shame. Last night in Geelong, the Lions defeated the Cats 123-101. If you want to find out more about what's happening around Australia and keeping in touch with the concerns that concern those not only in the major markets but in the outback, rural and regional areas, just keep watching and going to either X, YouTube, Rumble or Facebook, and we are live at this very moment. This is the Country Telegraph.
times and tan lines, cold beer and summer nights. That was all there was to life. Good times and tan lines, good times and tan lines.
You are camels. We're going to talk camels now. Camellia. What a great name, great word, camellia. And camel jockey Emily Parrott is a second-generation camel racer who spent her life in the sport and is now leading her camel pack 4,000 k's from Newcastle through to South Australia and into Queensland's Outback heartland. Absolutely magnificent. Don't know how the backside will be. We'll find out if you have padding. Raised at her family's Oakfield Ranch, Parrott has been racing camels since she was 14 and now brings her own children, Cooper and Abby, into the tradition, making a third generation of cameliers on the trail. Cooper's 7 and Abby is 11, by the way. Rival camel champions set for a red dirt rematch across Outback Queensland are Polished Copper and Jeffrey, who will defend their titles in one of Australia's most extraordinary sporting spectacles. Can you imagine that? What a long, long journey. Now, Desert Champions Way, Outback Camel Trail, is a moving, I should have music here, is a moving desert carnival of racing, storytelling, music and community across some of the country's most iconic outback towns, from Junda to Birdsville, I can't pronounce that one, Buduri. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll find out in a second. She's taken all these things down. Speak English. Also to Boulia and Winton. I can say that quite comfortably. The month-long celebration, it goes from July 3 to the 25th, transforms, which is today, till the end of the month, basically, transforms the region into a rolling festival of dust. Camel power. You watch your camel power, one humble chew. Rev it, baby. And desert theatre, where camel racing meets bucket list tourism. So first of all, I just find that the whole thing just truly, 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 truly interesting. Tell us, and nice to see you too, by the way. I mean, I have this fascination for camels. I think they are such unique animals. They got their own personalities, but they always look like they should belong in the Middle East. Maybe I'm wrong. Thank you for joining me. We need your microphone turned on, if you could. Just point that thing, Emily. We'll come back to Emily in a second. Emily might need to there. She's just disconnected, which is fantastic. Where's our engineer?
I didn't choose this life. I was born to live it. So was Dad, Pa, his dad, and his dad before that.
Come on, ladies.
You're supposed to be slowing down, you know. There's payback for all the free labour you got out of me as a kid.
I learned from watching my mum and dad and how they work together. So does my sister Sally.
Any trains? I don't. Feet up.
I'll always remember these days. It's the happiest days of my life. Together as a family.
Oh, you're so lucky I love you.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that about right, is it?
I don't know how you're going to deal with all this. Deal with what? $6 million debt? Most farmers are in this amount of debt. As farmers, we gamble with the weather every day, and it's a risk we take. You have no idea what I'm going through. Maybe you should talk to someone professional.
Oh my God, no, I'm fine. No, you're not, Alison.
You and your dad's coward.
Play a game of footy, all right?
Where's heaven?
What?
Where's heaven?
The sky, I think.
Can we go there?
Technology is now working. We've put 40 cents in two 20-cent pieces. Emily had to hunt around for that. Emily Parrott, thank you for restarting. It's technology is just so magnificent until you want to use it.
Yeah, look, I'm a lot better at riding camels than I am using the phone anyway.
Hey, tell me about the Outback Camel Trail. I mean, it sounds romantic. How does your rump feel after it?
Look, if you're riding properly, you're not on it a lot. You got to stand up and let the camel move underneath you. So it's more your thighs that get a bit of a workout, not your bum.
The Outback Camel Trail. I mean, I think it's like 4,000 kilometres. How long does it actually take? Do you start and get back just in time for the next one?
So we travel around to each one and we camp in between. We're on the road for about 7 weeks with our camels. And we just, travel to each one as we go. We don't go home in between. We just stay on the road.
What about the preparation that you do to, okay, because it's grueling. It is actually quite grueling. How do you prepare yourself for it? Do you just drink a lot?
Some of us do, yeah. There's a fair bit of prep that goes in. We've got some baby camels we've brought on the circuit, so there's a fair bit of for the races and loading up the truck and stuff. But we all work full-time jobs as well, so a lot of this is happening quite late at night or early in the morning around our normal life, and then we get ready to hit the road for 7 weeks and enjoy and lay back. It's more laid back once you're on the road. You're just feeding camels, going for a walk into town and enjoying people's company.
Tell me about some of the prizes that are involved. Do you win another camel?
No, we don't win another camel. There's lots of trophies and ribbons and that sort of thing. But it's more about the journey. Like anyone that's come to a camel race, it is an addictive thing. So it is good to win, which we've done a bit of. Last year's probably the best year we had in 16 years of racing. So there's that side of things. There's a little bit of prize money involved, not a lot when you're looking at the picture of, we did 8 tyres last year. So they get pretty pricey when you're buying truck tyres, blowing tyres on these outback roads out here. So, a little bit of prize money pays your way if you're lucky enough to get it. But, it's mainly for the experience and to be able to enjoy our family's time and friends around us and, of course, our beautiful camels.
Yeah, and how did your dad get into it?
Well, he likes to dabble in anything that involves training animals. He's been involved in animals since he was a young lad. He looked up to his grandfather big time, who worked his paddocks and that with horses. He's always been quite the good horseman. But when I was about 4-year-old, he's always loved camels, but an opportunity come up to buy a camel ride business with 20 camels. And naturally he couldn't say no. So that's where I suppose we both started off. Getting involved in camels, because I've always sort of enjoyed following in Dad's footsteps and really looked up to him and just the way he is with the animals, it's good to see that and try and reproduce that as well. So he bought 20 camels and now we've got about 100 between Dad and I. Luke, my husband, and I, we have about 13 and Dad's got, probably about 80 or 90 odd.
Jeepers. I mean, there's a reason to drink.
It's addictive, right?
And that's never, sometimes I say you have to look after yourself, but there's nothing wrong with having a beer, especially if it's about 40 degrees. Tell me about or even if it's only 20 degrees, it's still quite delicious. Tell me about the camels. Are they cantankerous or are they very stubborn, or are they just gorgeous creatures?
They are beautiful creatures. Look, in life, people could probably take a page out of a camel's book. Camels are like donkeys. They always get judged as stubborn, but I think they got more patience than the average person. So you can't work with camels if you haven't got any patience, because you won't get anywhere. They do a lot of thinking before acting as well, so that's something else people could do a bit more of. So they are a beautiful creature, and they're just misread. The way they come across, the way they speak sometimes can be taken as they're grumpy or something like that. But it's not. It's just the noise they make. We don't judge a cow when it moves. So, why is a camel cranky when it makes a grumble noise? They are quite sweet. Even some of the new ones we've got, Timmy, he loves coming in for a kiss. and just loves being right in your personal space. They can be quite affectionate, and they remember you as well. So we've got some of our camels are really quite affectionate with us, but a bit standoffish with other people.
Interesting. Comes in for a kiss. Does it floss beforehand, or
No, we're looking for volunteers to help brush their teeth if you're offering.
No, I'm not. But my producer, Jennifer, would. She'd love to do that. We'd have to send her up there tomorrow.
All right, I'll put it on the list.
We see camels with 2 humps and camels with 1 hump. Now, this is because I'm not a camel expert. You may not believe that. Tell me about the difference between those camels.
So we don't have any 2-hump camels in Australia. We've only got 1-hump camels in Australia. They are the ones that can handle the climate change here. Like sometimes it's really cold and sometimes it's really hot. They are a bit hardier. They're a bigger camel as well. I haven't had the pleasure of encountering a 2-hump camel yet. It is on the bucket list for us. But in Australia, we have the largest population of wild camels in the world. Overseas, they have more camels, but they are on farms. So they are becoming quite an issue out in Central Australia and stuff like that, where they're culling them now as well. So any opportunity for us to show people that these animals are quite versatile and a beautiful animal to have around, we jump on that.
Yeah, I think the ignorance shown by organisations and in government, I mean, there's just knock them on the head. I mean, truly, that's just the easy way out, which it's not. And it's not how Australians should act anyway. I don't give a shit what they say. Sorry, I don't care what they say. It is not how we act. Are they expensive to look after?
Look, like anything, if you're doing it in bulk, it works out less per animal, but they're just as much as like 2 large cows. They are more like a cow than a horse. They're a ruminant. They're in the ruminant family, but it's the same as rearing 2 large cows.
And tell me, what do they eat? I mean, what, straw or hay or?
They eat just about anything that grows. My gorgeous stepmom, her and I are forever having our fruit trees eaten. We have always wanted a garden. We never can because the camels can step over the fence and they get in there and they eat just about anything you plant. But yeah, they like the salt bush out in the desert. They like in the dry country. They like that sort of stuff. But we feed them on a lot of hay. We live more on the coast, so we don't have access to a lot of them dry sort of feeds, so we have to bring that in or make it ourselves. But a lot of hay, they eat grain, grass. They'll ring bark trees as well. Like they are good for clearing properties. A lot of people use them for that as well. Yeah.
What's the average age? What do they live to? Are they like 15, 20 or 30 or what?
So we say about 45 in captivity and only about 30 in the wild. I haven't actually heard of too many old camels found in the wild. Like we know a lot of people in the camel world, obviously, and yeah, to find one about 30, it's not that common. So they do, like anything, you keep them fit and healthy and they do live longer.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think animals need to be looked after because they do rely on us, although don't tell the camel that because it'll be the other way around. Hey, do they look forward to the races?
Yeah, so the camels we pick for the race circuit are generally the ones that are a little bit fizzy and very keen to go for a run. Like anything, they all have different things they like to do more. We have some that like to just take it easy and do rides on the beach, and then we have some that get fizzed up and love to go for a run.
Incredible. I have to say, because it's sort of, it is actually quite, not romantic, I suppose romantic, because you think about, because you're in the middle of nowhere and to be with one of God's creatures and to be truly enjoying the what we have, because it's, even though you got cattle and stuff, and it's the real Australia, isn't it? It's and you're dealing with real people who will tell you, what's the right way up, call a spade a shovel, but it has this attraction. I think it's just magnificent. If somebody wanted to find out more about what you're doing, how do they do that?
So, as you mentioned before, the Champions Way, the Camel Trail, they can look that up. There's 4 races on that circuit, and then there's Tara camel races as well. If you Google that, you'll find it super easy. We're from Oakfield Ranch Camels. That's what we do is our main thing. But yeah, you just give that a Google. We're at Junda now, and this is where you see real country people. It definitely should be on everybody's bucket list. Junda's only been going for 3 years. This is their 3rd year. And, mate, we've had a ball every time we've been here. The people are amazing. The atmosphere they bring is amazing. The town's only little, but it's got a big heart.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I think, Emily, you're doing a great job and you're probably living the dream. If you weren't a cameleer or a camel jockey, you mentioned another job, but what would you do?
Oh, I don't have to be something with animals. I'm one of 4. I've got siblings. I've got a teacher, a mechanic, and a jeweler in the family, and I'm just the bush bumpkin animal trainer. So anything to do with animals, that's where I'd be.
Yeah, they are very special, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are. And we need to also appreciate that and respect it, which in this day and age, we sort of think things and put them into an organisation or to a particular box, and that's how they're treated. And it's just like the brumbies in the Kosciuszko National Park. It's sometimes you just shake your head, you think, where did this come from? Anyway, that's another story. Emily Parrott, cameleer and camel jockey, a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
This is the Country Telegraph.
Outback Queensland. It's stepping back about 100 million years.
It's soaking in the surrounds.
It's wide open for adventure.
It's where dinner puts up a fight.
And it's your round for new stories.
It's switching on easy mode and a whole lot of incredible.
Outback Queensland. It's something else. Book your holiday now.
Australian made means made right here in Australia. But it's more than just where it's made. It means made by Australians, backing local businesses and jobs. Made for the way we live, right here. It's why buying Australian made just feels right. Australian made, made right here.
We're the only ones with solutions to the problem.
Now needs investment to urgently improve capacity at the base hospital.
30,000 people every year go to a Mildura base hospital, present to emergency. People wait in emergency longer there than the average time right across Victoria. The announcement around the $180 million investment, the 18 new ED beds and the 30 new beds in the acute ward, so that regional Victorians here in Mildura, in the Mallee, get their fair share of infrastructure funding. Jade's been fighting for better funding for healthcare in Mildura for nearly nearly 4 years now. Prior to that, she was fighting for it at the last election, and the people of Mildura placed their trust in her to come to Spring Street and to make sure that she's fighting for their fair share.
Nina, what is the guy you've got connections to?
My dad's family has had a long history up here. He went to primary school up here, and my nan lived up here for most of her life. My Auntie Carol and Uncle Jim had a property out in Irimple, and Auntie Carol is still here. So I used to spend a lot of summers up here coming up for Christmas, and absolutely love Mildura. It's a very special place. Jade Benham is the person who can deliver for this community in a Liberal and Nationals government.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Our next guest is Jade Benham, MP, the state member for Mildura, also Shadow Minister for Water, Consumer Affairs, Disability, Ageing, Careers and Volunteers, carers and volunteers, no careers. Jade has served previously as a mayor, which gave her great opportunity to advocate for her community and region. Jade's run a small business since 2011 and resides on an almond orchard at a place called Bannerton. I have to say, I lived in St Razia for many years and left pretty quickly when I could. I've never heard of Bannerton, but I looked it up. It's a pretty impressive little part of the world. Jade, thank you for joining us.
Morning, Mike. Why would you leave as quickly as you could? I and many others have returned. It is God's country out here.
It is, but look at these hands.
Oh, yeah, they're not working man's hands, Mike.
You know, we had a citrus orchard, and then Dad pulled them out and put in avocados, and surrounding this beautiful big house, which my brother, when I left, he sprayed the lawns with Roundup because he couldn't be bothered mowing it, so we had dirt. But anyway, I would go out, I'd hop in the car, I would drive down to the Cardross stall and buy a thing of orange juice because I just would not go outside into the trees, pick a couple of oranges and squeeze them. Now, that's how big a farmer I am.
Oh, gosh.
Terrible. And you think Dad was happy? He was a copper, ex-policeman up there.
Yes, he was. A very committed, dedicated policeman, your father.
He was indeed. And it's we went to his funeral. I mean, it's anyway, we're getting right off the track here. But Mildura, it is. St Razia is a great part of the world. Bannerton, I've not been there, but it looks fantastic. You're heading towards Swan Hill. You know, in Mildura, we used to think Swan Hill was a bit like and in Swan Hill they thought the other way around. So at least you had a train.
Well, that's true. And the train is still there for now. There are rumours afoot that this government is going to that's the last sort of V-line service that still uses the N-class locos and carriages. So there are rumours swirling around. I know Peter Walsh has asked about that train.
It's terrible. The one back to Mildura needs to be brought back to. Imagine the tourism. You could have jazz playing out on the great restaurants, new local products and stuff, creating the awareness of the area. Even if it kicked off, like twice a week or something, and you do an overnight stay or daytime stay, a bit like the GAN, would it be?
Yeah.
And something like that. How fantastic would that be?
Well, 707 operations actually do the Vinelander tourist train. It takes 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days.
From Melbourne to Mildura. So, look, there are a few things we can do, and I have been working on this for a while with regard to the train. There's a few stations that would need a shave and a haircut, and some of the level crossings might need some work so that the train could run at a sort of efficient pace, particularly for people that need to travel now with changes to the Victorian Transport Patient Assistance Scheme. The train is probably more necessary than it has ever been, and it's a whole new demographic that's asking for it. So I am working on it. Labor, I've asked Gabrielle Williams, the Honourable Minister for Transport, and she has said unequivocally that Labor have no interest in bringing that back. They're sidetracked with digging big holes under the city. So
that's right. There's a shortfall of $15 billion.
Yeah, imagine how you could do it 3 times over with $15 billion.
You could do more.
And build a couple of hospitals.
You could do it 15 times over. But I think it's something we need back. And Jen producer used to work with Jeff Kennett. And I was very supportive of Jeff Kennett, except I thought that it was probably not a great move to remove the service, the Vinelander, to Mildura. But Jeff always had an answer when you ask him something that was quite that he didn't agree with, he would tell you on air to go forth and multiply.
Well, yeah, in no uncertain terms. There was the Sunraysia train too that Joan Kerner had actually stopped. So I don't mind reminding Labor ministers that it was Joan Kerner that started the termination of the passenger rail in 1991, I think that was, before Kennett came in. And, he had to cut a lot of things. And I was at school when he started amalgamating and closing primary schools. And yet here I am still a member for the Nationals. So understand fiscal responsibility, but the regional discrimination that's occurred in terms of public transport and many other things is something that I am working hard on. That's where the fair share guarantees come from.
Okay, to the nitty gritty. At the moment we have there is a crisis because of a glut and demand just diminishing for grapes, or for the wine industry. Sorry, we have the price of fuel. It's about to go up again. The conflict in the Middle East is not going to stop for a long time. So therefore, the cost of goods and services and fuel and fertiliser and so forth become way more expensive in this country. Mildura, 6.5 hours from Melbourne, 4.5 hours from Adelaide. It does rely on fuel. How serious of a concern is that for the LNP?
It's a real concern, and I had brought this up living in a small town called Robinvale. We actually did run out of fuel when the conflict first began and the strait was closed. So, and I did question the Premier and was accused of being alarmist. Meanwhile, I was literally watching our fuel distributors being unable to get fuel. So it's a real concern, and speaking to some of our fuel distributors, and they have done an exceptional job of prioritising our industry here, because we are built on the back of the agriculture sector. There's no two ways about it. Everything in this region is related to it, and if you think it's not, you're wrong. So they have done an exceptional job of prioritising that sector and industry. The concern now is, and I don't know much about fuel refinery and making grease and oil and things like that, but some of the concerns are the grease cakes apparently that come from the Middle East on ships, as well as the crude oil, but some of the grease cakes that goes into making all of those other byproducts, that could also be a real concern to manufacturers here. So not only is it a concern about the lack of fuel should the strait, and who knows, that situation's incredibly volatile. We can't do much about that, but what we can do is, I suppose, try and read the future. And I'm confident in our local distributors that they've been in the game a long, long time. They have said to me that they've never seen anything like this before in the past 40 years. So, but they are doing everything they can. So the concern is real, and it's just another thing that is added to the plate of food producers in this region.
And also the bottom's fallen out of a good glass of wine. I mean, which is terrible. How do we fix that? I know that they're in South Australia. They're trying to do all sorts of things, access funds and stuff that have been hidden, not because of any nefarious activity, just because it's just been forgotten about. But even that's a short-term fix. How do we get a contradiction? They say you shouldn't drink because it's not good for your health. If you look at some of the Italians, which many of those up around Robinvale, Sunraysia, Swan Hill, and they live to 90 or 100, and they have the stuff they drink grappa. I mean, surely that stuff should be almost banned. That was my first drink, by the way. And
was it?
When I was 15, isn't it?
Goodness. Terrible? I think my Italian father still has some in the cupboard that
cleans the engine well.
Yeah, well, it does. And my father, like I said, he is a Calabrese man, and he has survived cancer twice and a stroke. So maybe there's something to that. My Italian grandfather lived until he was 86 and was still working the farm and working with cows. So there might be something in that. But as far as the wine industry goes, there has been signs, and the governing bodies of wine growers have been alerting producers for a while now that changes were coming. And this is in terms of those growers that grow for commercial wineries. And we've seen, the demise of some of those, Lindemans and some of the big commercial wineries that would buy grapes from our local wine growers. That's where the problem is. So it's a case of, with any farming enterprise, and I grew up in one, you have to diversify and you have to make sure you're not sort of putting all your eggs in one basket, I suppose. So it's, and we've seen the same thing with dried fruit in Sunray's. Dried fruit was our biggest industry at one point, and now it's a very small slice of the pie. And I was at Sunbeam Foods last week, actually, with Jess Wilson, talking about dried fruit and the renaissance that was forecast, and that hasn't quite happened, and that's due to a lot of things. Fuel is one, lack of water is another. So there are a few industries that are doing it tough. And this is, I suppose, I always say this, that it's the risk you take when you do business with God, unfortunately. But there are many things that governments could do, but handing out funds to subsidise, in my mind, doesn't make the practice sustainable. So there's got to be other ways, and that's where the work of Murray Valley Wine Grapes, Wine Growers Association, and Australian Table Grapes and governing bodies like that. That's where they're really earning their money at the moment.
Let's talk hospitals. We played a clip beforehand and saw that. I didn't know Jess Wilson was a local.
Yeah, well, her family is. And Arnie Carroll still lives here, and I catch up with Arnie Carroll regularly. But Henshelwood Oval, or Henshelwood Reserve at Irimple, named after, we think, not Uncle Jim, but perhaps same family, for Henshelwood. So, and Ron Wilson, Jess's dad, actually went to Sacred Heart Primary School in Mildura, which I got to take Jess to last week. So, and there was a couple of photos from the 60s on the foyer wall in there, which we couldn't find Ron. But yeah, he attended that primary school, and Jess spent many a summer swimming in the Irimple pool. And when I said to her, I mean, it's the middle of winter, so it's not open, but when I said to her that the paintings are still on the bottom of the toddler's pool, she was a bit chuffed, and you could see that sort of nostalgia come back. So yeah, and she loves coming back here. She's been up here quietly a few times to visit Arnie Carroll and to visit me. Why not? And to bring her family. Her whole family was here at Easter time. Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. I used to play footy at that football ground for the Tigers, for Redcliffs. So,
did you?
Yeah. I wasn't that great.
They've still got the same visitors' change rooms that's over 100 years old.
Oh, it was terrible then.
Yeah, with the open fire in the visitors' change rooms, I kid you not. It looks like an old mud brick hut, and we have been trying to get that replaced for a long time. Yeah.
It was always cold, though. I mean, anyway, but get off track. Let's talk about the Mildura-based hospital.
Yes.
You guys are going to spend 180 mil. I need to ask you one question. How will you get that money? Because if you do get into power, if you don't get into government this time, you never will. And you've had some pretty poor attempts in the last 10 years, but you have a very good chance of becoming government. You're going to walk into a minefield. You're going to walk into this black hole of money. How do you get the money to pay for that hospital?
Well, the two things you do first, Mike, is you stop the corruption and you end the waste. And that will save, there'll be a lot of efficiencies and a lot of money that we can save there just by doing those two things. Because we know, as Jeffrey Watson said, conservatively, there's been about $15 billion funneled into the pockets of bikies and organised crime on big build sites alone. So it's a matter of reprioritising and stopping that waste, actually getting a forensic look at the books, understanding the ghost shifts. Even yesterday, and it's amazing now that we're talking about this and it's being exposed, the amount of people that are coming forward, still under the guise of anonymity, because there is fear there. But I had someone sending me receipts last night for ghost shifts that have occurred over a week while someone was taking a holiday in the Gold Coast. They're also invoicing the big build to the tune of $11,000 a week. So, it's those kind of efficiencies that we'll be able to recover a lot of cash, I suppose, a lot of capital, to be able to do the things that actually matter. And we know that regional Victoria has really gone without. We know that a quarter of Victorians live in the regions, and we've been getting about 11.2% of infrastructure funding. That's simply not good enough. A quarter of us live out here. We deserve at least a quarter of infrastructure funding, and that's what the Nationals and the Liberals in government will deliver, because it's so needed. And that goes for roads infrastructure, that goes for things like hospitals, that goes for things like Redcliffe's change rooms, hopefully, all of these things that have been neglected and ignored. We will get our fair share under a Liberals Nationals government.
Okay, another one. What about this government, along with New South Wales and even the LNP in Queensland and South Australia, but those three in particular, Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, they have this compulsory acquisition. They can walk on someone's land and say, bugger off, we're going to do what we want. If you look at the transmission towers and the renewables going up, such as wind farms, I see in your area you have a solar farm. Actually, I haven't got a problem with that one because it's you've got so much ground out there. It's not going to make any difference at all. So a really good idea because it does add to the supply. But what about will your government rescind the compulsory acquisition for renewables, because what it is doing to regional and rural communities, it's actually just flattening them entirely. Will you rescind that? Because I know Jess has mentioned that she'll put a pause on it. The pause is all, a bit, in honesty, can be a bit politically gobbledygook. Because a pause, you can say there's a pause and we're going to bring it back. So what will happen with that? Because the intrusion into people's lives by government is something that we should avoid at most times.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, we will stop V&I West. We know that there is an alternative. So yeah, it will be reviewed, but we will stop V&I West. We will give people back their third-party right of appeal. We will repeal the compulsory acquisition laws. Lily D'Ambrosio, when I brought this up in budget estimates, she called it authority to access. Same thing. People can, VicGrid employees or authorised officers can enter farmland along that corridor now without permission. And if the landholder refuses entry, they can be fined. And I have spoken to farmers and landholders that have been fined already, even though when I asked this during budget estimates to the minister, she denied it. I'm not surprised. But yes, I know how much this is affecting landholders out in the Mallee and the Southern Mallee. It is just another thing. And like I said before, Mike, there are a lot of things that are compounding the mental health of our food producers. And it's also going to affect food security in the long term. So this is one thing that we can do immediately, along with scrapping the emergency services tax, to just help ease the pressure that our food producers are under at the moment, because, they're at breaking point, and this is just one of those things. And it has been wrapped up and dressed up by this government as energy reform, but what it actually is trampling over regional Victoria in the name of ideology, and there is no common sense to this whatsoever. There are already easements for a transmission network out there. Professor Mountain has said, build your renewables closer to where you need them so that you get less curtailment, it's much more efficient, and it costs you less. So again, we can save some money there, because doing things the right way, using a plan B, will actually cost about a third. So essentially, yes, we will stop it. It will be reviewed. Again, Daniel Andrews stopped East-West Link and tore up the contract. So it's not like we can't do these things. And like I've said plenty of times, if we have to decide, that we are going to tear up contracts, what a wonderful position to be in on November 29th.
That's right. And I have to say, because I was my dad was always Labor. He had one of his few faults, but and he used to, and same with my family, they're all Labor. I went over to the other side and I went to the LNP, and I don't regret that. Having said that, recently in the last probably 10 years, or probably 8 years, been very, very disappointed in the LNP because they seem to have become a Labor light. Angus Taylor, who I admire quite a lot actually, so the Feds under his auspice or his direction, I think, is not a bad thing. I have to say, I was quite not critical, but I was holding back my feelings towards Jess, and I'm actually impressed at this stage. She understands the rural community, which is something that we need. You understand it, obviously, and the rural community, as such, you're right, they are left out, and they're a forgotten force, but they are such an important part to the continuation of the lifestyle we lead. Tell me about the water allocation. It's chaotic at the moment. Have irrigators in your area been given a substantial reduction in water allocations? And again, this is, if you're looking at the 2030 agenda, which is all over the Labor Party's websites and stuff, and hand in hand with the UN, it's the environment first, and then it's the continuation again of the lifestyle we have. So farmers have been pushed around and limited resources. Farmers are very, very concerned about the environment, because if they weren't, they wouldn't have a business. So the dumbing down of a farmer's contribution to society and to country is just terrible. The water allocations, though, it just seems like it's an absolute rort.
It actually is, and there's a few things that could be done, because what happens during times of low allocation as well, we have speculators manipulating the market and pushing the price of temporary water up as well. That needs to change. But I always say, Mike, that without our farmers, and there is a level of I call it city narcissism that is directed at us country folk sometimes, and without us, I tell you what, you would be naked, hungry and sober, because you don't survive without us producing your food, your fibre and your alcohol, quite frankly, because that doesn't fall from the sky. But as far as the allocations, they were released on July 1. This is the first round of allocations. So Murray has only got 29%. It's quite... The last 12 months has been quite dry, so we knew that this was coming. Goulburn's at 15%, Campaspe 35%, and Loddon 3%. They will hopefully go up. Now, I know we say it's quite dry. I haven't checked the rain gauge this morning, but we've had quite a bit of rain over the last 3 days here on the river, but we need the rain to fall in the right places. And this is falling in the right places for the wheat cockies, sort of Annuello, Manangatang and south. But we actually need it to fall in the right places, so that if, it needs to fill up those water storages so those allocations can go up. And importantly, it kind of needs to snow, because that helps as well. So, without that snow melt, that's a real concern. And, we have been through this time and time again. So farmers are the most resilient people around, but they are also the biggest environmentalists and caretakers of the land. Because as you said, Mike, without looking after their land, it becomes unproductive. And without water, it becomes unproductive. So our food and fibre producers are some of the biggest environmentalists you will find. Some have, their own dedicated native veg offsets. They have... They've built their own wetlands on farm. I know my husband's got a wetland and his own patch of, I think there's 4,500 acres of native veg offsets and things like that. So they are committed to striking a balance. What's happened is that under this ideological policy that comes from I don't know where, there has been an incredible shift to prioritising the environment, and from taking a step back and looking at it from a broad lens, trying to return the river to what it was before development. Now, that's never going to happen, and I don't disagree. In fact, I do agree. Obviously, we need a healthy river system. Of course we do, because that sustains life, every aspect of life. But we do need to find a balance, and there's been several things that have happened. You know, there's the sustainable diversion limit projects that have been, some have been executed in Hatter, and that's a wonderful thing. The floodplain restoration projects, because we can't, with all this development, and I know there are some environmentalists, Environment Victoria are completely against these, which I think contradicts a lot that they apparently stand for, because there's whole ecologies in those floodplains that will die if we can't get water out. Now, pumping it out with a pipe is not effective, but to get water, to let it flow naturally over the levee bank, will inundate every river community along the river. So also so this is striking a balance. And to be fair, you know, Victoria has done the heavy lifting here. We really have. And Minister Singh has dug her heels in and being quite firm that Victoria will not agree to any more water buybacks, and nor should we, because we have done our fair share of lifting. I actually put in a submission to the Basin Plan review, and it started, my first draft was about 20 pages, and I think I got it down to about 13, but there are actually quite simple solutions here to help out South Australia without taking more water out of Victoria and out of the consumptive pool. So, and I could talk about this for hours. I'm a bit of a water nerd, which is, I suppose, how I've ended up with this portfolio, thankfully, because it's a passion of mine, and I have been, you know, I grew up in irrigated horticulture, but understanding that there needs to be a balance, and it's not a finite resource, and it is our most important part of being able to feed the world, feed our families, and sustain life, quite frankly.
The other thing is, just quickly, reform for the Murray-Darling Basin Authority is obviously needed, just because we are going to run out of time soon. So just just briefly, tell us how you would reform it.
Well, no more water buybacks for a start, particularly without the socioeconomic testing. But there is a solution around the Menindee Lakes. Now, this has been, I remember Peter Crisp talking about this. He has spoken to me since as well. There is about 200 gigalitres of dead storage in Lake Corndilla. We could actually use that with a very small infrastructure project, and getting the channel, and this is a very a paraphrased solution, but this is just one that will get us back about 200 gig into Lake Victoria. So there is that sitting there that no one appears to even have entertained that idea yet, which is just, it blows my mind that hasn't even been put on the table. So when I wrote my review submission, that was the crux of it. I called it the Corndilla Conundrum. And why haven't we, the channel exists, it needs to be widened, it probably needs to be straightened. I'm not an engineer, I'll leave that up to them. My job, Mike, is to come up with some solutions and give it to the details people, but to actually have a long-term vision for sustainability for a healthy Murray-Darling system and healthy communities along that Murray-Darling system, because that is what is most important to all basin communities. We have to be prosperous. That way we thrive, but it also has to strike a balance between, you know, the healthy river system environment and prosperity of communities along it.
You know, my dad loved the Murray. We would go there, my wife and I, and Dad and one of his second wife passed away, by the way. He didn't go through wives because he was excited. She passed away, a lovely, beautiful Norma. They took us down to the Murray to have have lunch, sandwich, and just to watch the river go by, and he always talked about it. It was probably one of the most horrific experiences of my life. There were flies, there were ants, and it was about 432 degrees. And my wife Lynn and Norma and Dad, they had a fantastic time. It was like living in a Stephen King novel for me. And so I mean, I understand that the Murray is appreciated by many, and I do too. But the actual surrounds of it, you can keep it forever and a day.
That's all right. I'll keep it. It is a very, very special place. It really is.
Right. It is a special place.
It is, despite the ants and the bugs.
Oh, those flies, they're like damn B-52 bombers. They're like...
Yeah, they are. And the mosquitoes are quite good too.
Well, I didn't have... Thanks. I didn't have those. Just quickly, I'm going to segue in a second into another a clip I want to play, and after we finish. But the federal government is just announced it's going to spend X amount of dollars. This says 250 mil. Forget that number. It's going to buy back and control 30% of Australia's land mass and 30% of the water access, and they're going to create. Basically, they want to take us back before Captain Cook got here, even probably further back. So that's why the issues with the brumbies and other things at the moment are quite paramount, and they're based on propaganda. The information. Anyway, it's another story. What's your views on government buying back rural communities and putting more strain on our food security? Because that's what's going to happen if you buy back a farm. And the clip I'll play after we finish is talking about Tasmania. They're going to plant it with trees and put in a bunch of wind turbines. It does put enormous stress on those on the land, because if they fail, then Australia fails.
Correct. Exactly. Well, Australia was built on the back of farmers. The government needs to understand that Australians just want to live their lives, feed their families, particularly farmers. They just want to do their job, grow their produce, whatever it is, and the government needs to get out of the way and let them do that. It's as simple as that. There is too much government intervention, which is causing all of this strain, which then in turn puts pressure on the mental health system. You know, we see the rates of suicide, particularly with men in rural and regional areas now, the highest they have ever been. And there is a reason for this. All of these compounding factors, there's only so much one human can take, and it is just devastating at the moment. So, quite frankly, and I've had many conversations with David Littleproud about this, you know, the government need to just get out of our way and let us live our lives. The government buying back land to plant trees and put wind turbines on and then destroy land for transmission networks is just, it laughs in the face of this environmental ideology as well. I mean, wind turbines, and I'm not against renewables, but it has to be done sensibly. I mean, wind turbines, I look at them and just think the carbon footprint that's gone into installing that thing, you know, the concrete that goes in the ground, the carbon footprint to make concrete first and foremost, and then the oil and the grease for the bearings to make it go around, the diesel generator, you know, the carbon footprint that it takes to create it is not offset by the renewable energy that it produces over its 20-year lifespan. So that is the reality. You're right, it is. It's based on propaganda, this notion that farmland can be bought back. And I think that's because that particular side of politics, the Greens, the Labor Greens, have really demonised farmers. They've demonised irrigators, and they've made us out to be the ones that have destroyed the environment, when it is quite the contrary. We're the ones that have been looking after the land and looking after the environment. And, you know, if they would actually just get in their cars and drive across some of the pothole-filled roads and come out here and see the farmland that they're destroying, they might think twice about it.
Just quickly, we've gone way over time, but I have to say I've enjoyed the conversation immensely, and you're doing I think, this my own humble opinion, you seem to be doing a very, very good job. But this will depend, I have to say, it will depend on the next answer, because the tigers were always very big in the area, because it used to be a Richmond stronghold. And I'm a St Kilda supporter, by the way, so I'm a terrible person. We can't win a game, probably. But who do you follow in footy? And this is very important, because you know that the world is judging you at the moment, Jade.
Yeah, and you know what? I make no apologies whatsoever. I am a Richmond supporter. I think I'm a silver or a gold member.
Really?
Yes. Have been for a long time. My youngest son has defected last year, and I was a little bit heartbroken. His membership card arrived last season, and I said, "Oh, your Tigers membership card's here," and he gave me a side glance and he went, "Keep it. I'm going to Hawthorn."
Oh no. Coffee.
So we're also Melbourne Storm fans. We watch a lot of rugby league in this town. Robinvale's got a huge and Mildura as well have a huge Islander population, and my husband's workforce is largely Pacific Islanders, Tongan, Samoan. So we watch a lot of rugby league. So we're also members of the Melbourne Storm, and I won a couple of weeks ago, Mike, when the State of Origin was at the MCG, the Parliamentary Friends of Rugby League, which I am the secretary of. We have a touch football game early in the morning, and we had Freddie was there, Christian Welsh coached one side, Josh King coached us. It was country versus city. Apparently we lost. I don't know who was actually keeping score, but they are obviously using Labor maths to keep score because I think country won. And player of the match was yours truly, Mike. So we are a very sporting family, but yes, I am a Richmond supporter. I actually spoke to, you being a St Kilda supporter, I spoke to Carl Dittrich a few weeks ago. He was a teacher of mine. He hated me at the time, but his beautiful wife, Alana, passed away a few weeks ago, and she was a beautiful lady. So I saw Carl for the first time in, probably 20 years. And he and his kids and I all grew up together. So I was really shocked and saddened to hear of the passing of his wife.
Carl, his former defensive play was to give you a biff behind the ears.
That was kind of his teaching style too, if I'm honest.
Scary. I had a guy called Ian Sharp. He used to play for Footscray. He was also a bit of a biker. And one day I headed down Langtree to buy something to eat because I didn't like the tuck shop. I got back a bit late and he said, "Where were you?" And I said, and I told a fib, and he gave me a belt in the stomach. He said, "Don't lie to me again." So I never did. But Mildura is a great place. Raise is a great place. Richmond, I'm sorry to say, is not a great side, but I take joy in saying that too, by the way.
We'll be right.
Jade, I'll buy you a beer next time. Jade, if somebody wants to find out more about you, this is the final question. How do they do that?
A quick Google search will bring up a few pages, but jadebenham.com.au is the website, and you can find anything you need to know there.
Even your football preferences?
Well, probably. I think I've left that off because, again, to actually win government, we need to win seats, and I don't want to lose votes based on the football teams I follow.
Yep. Jade, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure. This is the Country Telegraph. Aren't they majestic animals? Just beautiful. The federal government, yesterday we were talking about it, really interesting. Nothing really in mainstream media. Even most of the independent media are saying nothing. Think about it. They're going to buy back 30% of Australia. They're going to make, whether you're farming or whatever, and it all might sound all, oh, isn't that wonderful? But 30% of our land will be under the control of various state governments and the federal government, and organised by such groups as the Invasive Species Council. And they want to do away with anything except for those little animals that were there, and they say are extinct. Of course, we need to look after them. But the atrocities at the moment and the way we're acting, it's not how Aussies act towards such beautiful creatures. And I think we should be ashamed of ourselves. But the government, though, is buying all this land. By 2030, according to the government, it will have bought 30%. And they can acquire it if they want to, acquire it compulsory, such as the state government is trying to and can do in Victoria with the transmission lines and the wind turbines and the solar farms. Same in New South Wales. Queensland government has just passed it or is about to pass the law that they can do the same. And look at the fire ant fiasco. Again, Invasive Species Council. And it is all lies. It is pure propaganda. But what is worrying is that no one's talking about it. We are trying to, a friend of mine who's very senior with a political organisation said that the Albanese and his government, they want us to start importing more food so they can protect Australia. It's not protecting the country. You saw what happened with the fuel. If we rely on ships to bring it in, we're stuffed. So in Tasmania, a huge property, I think it's called the Rushy Lagoon, and they've had 9 times it's been not knocked back, but will defer, and they've deferred a decision again. The federal government has deferred a decision yet on that, but a British guy who's a forester, wants to come in and stop the dairy and other industries. There's 3 dairies on this property. Want to stop that, put in trees and wind turbines. And to make it worse, he's a front runner because the federal government is subsidising part of the offer, which is terrible. The federal government is working against, in this case, Tasmanians. Anyway, I'll play you this clip and let you think about it.
This is a 22,000 hectare. It's a huge farm. Enormous investment in irrigation systems onto that property. It's got 3 dairy farms on it, plus it runs a lot of beef. It is not in our interests. It is not in our national interest to convert this to growing trees. It'll have an impact on the dairy industry in Tasmania and potentially an impact on the beef processing industry in Tasmania. We can't afford either of those 2 things. Tas farmers have been concerned about it for a long time. The local community, the council are all concerned about it. The government should reject this subsidised takeover and allow the market, because there is other interest, there are other offers on the table, should allow the market to work properly rather than distorting the market through this subsidisation.
Incredible. Senator Richard Colbeck there in Tasmania, and it's just incredible that the federal government would subsidise a private a business from the UK to come out of here and vandalise what's already been put in place. Just incredible. And he wants to plant all these pine trees. That's not part of the environment, but whatever suits. So I think we do need to arc up and start getting a voice and getting mad, getting really angry, because 4 years, 2030, and many other things we'll be coming into, censorship and all that sort of stuff. And it's just terrible. I think we're in deep trouble. We need to get back to being Australians, I believe. And Australians had a very, very, very good approach to, or a very Aussie approach to life. We had a very cordy sense of humour. She'll be right, mate. Few beers. I mean, even football sides have a few beers in the bush. St Kilda did in the VFL. So we had a thing about Australia that made Australia very unique and sometimes cringeworthy. Murray Fields was one of the great comedians. I used to bump into him at Channel 9 in Melbourne when I was there. Murray Fields, magnificent Australian. The show was Hey Hey It's Saturday, and they have the great Aussie joke, Shane Bourne and Murray Fields generally. And so I'm going to play you one of those jokes, very Australian. But this is the quintessential, what we should be like, I think. We need to take back our country and start calling a spade a shovel instead of destroying the environment with that shovel and destroying our country with that shovel. This is Murray Fields.
This is another poor Aussie mongrel, and he's driving across the Nullarbor, you see, and his car broke down, so he decided to get out and walk. Imbecile. So he's walking along, and it's getting hotter and hotter. It's about 80 in the water bag. He's dying of thirst. Started to crawl, and just then a fella hopped past on a big red kangaroo. And he said, "Help, water, please, give me help. Help, water, help. Help, dying, thirst." Bloke said, "I haven't got any water." He said, "Do you want to buy a tie?" He said, no, water. He said, "Sorry, I only got ties." And wait, half an hour later, he's crawling along on his hands and knees. Oh, dying. Another fella came past in a big blue kangaroo. He said, "Help! Water, please give help. Hey, ho, you." Fella said, "No." He said, "Sorry." He said, "I only got ties." He said, "I can give you a polka dot one, or there's one there with the girl painted on the front, nice wide one. You don't need a cardigan." He said, "No, sorry." And off he went. Half an hour later, he's got a bit further and he saw this shimmering haze in the desert. And he crawled towards it, and sure enough, it wasn't a mirage. It was a beautiful RSL club. He knocked on the door. The fella came out, and he said, "Water!" He said, "No, you can't get in without a tie." There you are. That's about it for the week. Had a great time. Very, very emotional about those poor brumbies. I think what we're doing is just bloody awful, isn't it? But we have to keep going and get through that pile of horse propaganda. There you are. I won't quote what Jack Goff said, but I feel like it, but I won't. It's terrible, isn't it? What's happening to our horses, our brumbies, more importantly, what's happening to our fellow Australians. Catch you next week on Monday. Have a great weekend. I hope your football team wins in the AFL. I hope your football team wins, unless it's Essendon, as some say, and Jen pulls me up all the time, Essendon, but there's an N in it, so Essendon, the Dons, the Bombers, because they're playing St Kilda, so I hope they lose. I hope you get thumped. I don't know about that one. They're playing better and better. But anyway, may your team win. Have a great weekend too, by the way.
and I'll catch you Monday. This is the Country Telegraph.
Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Brumby hoofprints etched for generations in the snow. I've watched the foals become the mares, the stallions old and slow. Here in the snowy mountains where my life began, across hills, ridges and open plains my fellow brumbies ran. I've led them through winter storms, drought and summer rain, but I can't outrun what follows now. Shield my family from this pain. My ancestors crossed the oceans, but I was born upon this land. These mountains are my birthplace, the Snowies are my clan. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. Tell my foal I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Stay close beside me, little one. The thunder isn't rain. The sky itself is hunting us, and I cannot stop the pain. I gather those I love and turn to face the sound. Though every instinct tells me run, there's nowhere left for us now. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. I fall upon the ground, thunder again and again. My heart grows quiet as bullets rain. I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to roam, more sunrises with my Kosciuszko clan before the mountains called me home. Tell them I was born here, my grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home, the snowy mountains were ours. Tell my foal I knew her fear. Tell my mare I heard her call. Tell my foal I tried to save them. Tell the wind how brumbies fall. Tell my foal I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye.